Hey, it's Dylan Childers, and this is my RU Baseball Team Improvement Project. This mental toughness program is designed for the Reinhardt University baseball team. The goal is to create a psychology program that could be used for future reference. Unfortunately, the program cannot be actually implemented due to time constraints with in relation to the class, but this is a good program if I were to use it in the future. Some goals of my program. The baseball team improvement project goals include improving player confidence, number one. Each player starts at a certain level of confidence, and this is something they'll have to build on, whether it be low confidence or they already have good confidence. There's always something you can build on. After that, we're looking to improve player composure, and composure and confidence will be tied together before the mental toughness program actually starts. And obviously, a baseball player needs to be composed, especially a pitcher on the mound. Elite level pitchers are usually the most composed, and people who are shaky on the mound tend to not be as successful. So, this is a very important part, especially for them. After the composure and confidence portion, we have the mental toughness program. This program will go for 2 weeks. The first week would be a locker room discussion sort of week where players begin to understand more about the process. And then the second week would be more hands on and a lot more information about how to actually improve mental toughness. At the very end of the program, the goal is to establish goals systems for each individual. The most important part, I believe, will be the goals. Next, we go into the first part of the program, the first week, which is confidence and composure. The goal is to establish a good base for each player on the team. Each player needs to see where they're at as far as how confident they feel on the field and how composed they are. Some players have a natural ability and they're just not as confident or composed, and they feel like maybe they're not as good as what they actually are. So this is a good time to see where they're at, and there are some simple techniques that can give early improvements. Some techniques like breathing techniques for composure are great. As far as confidence goes, that's something that will have to develop within their own mind. So it's not like you can just tell a player, hey, get confident. It's something that will develop over time, which is more of the mental part. But techniques that can improve, like breathing and counting in your head, things like that will make a big difference as far as composure goes. So for day one, we start at what is confidence and what is composure. Um, the goal of this day would be for players to write down their personal definition of each thing. What is confidence to you? What is composure to you? And then after that, they rate how they view their own confidence and their own composure. So if they feel like, sometimes they feel confident out there, but other times they get a little skittish, maybe a better team is playing against them, they want to note that. So maybe they have a mid-level. And so it's important for these players to know where they stand. And so players write down their personal techniques for staying composed, what they already have established. I talked about if they have breathing techniques or if they have a counting technique that they use while they're on the field. This would be the time to write that down. If they don't have any techniques, then that's something they would need to develop, and that would be something that they could discuss at that time with whoever's running the program. Say it's me or a coach, then they would need to learn at that point. So for the second day, we would have techniques for improving confidence. And like before, confidence isn't something that you just do, that you just get better at all of a sudden. So, You give each player a list of ways to improve based on their personal rating of their own confidence levels. So depending on what their level is currently sitting at will determine things they need to do. If they feel like they're not strong enough and that gives them less confidence being weaker out there, then tell them they need to work out more, maybe getting in better shape. If they feel like they're a little bulky and they want to trim down to get their confidence up, then that's something they need to work on. A lot of people think of things that they want to do, but then they just don't go through with it. So a big part of this is giving them that drive to actually do it. If they want to be more confident and they want to look better out there, then they need to do some of these things. So you have to practice things you feel uncomfortable doing. If that means working out and getting in shape, then that's something you got to work on. You can't just get your confidence up by walking out there and saying, wow, I feel better. So work with them on that on day 2 and see how far you can get. So for day 3, you have techniques for establishing composure. You give players a list of exercises, and I've noted a few examples here, like the breathing. Another thing you can do, this would be more related to like sports where the crowd is on top of you. Now, obviously, depending on the environment, baseball can be very loud, but in some situations, there's not a lot of people in the crowd. So crowd noise is something you can practice with, depending on the level. Is something that they could get used to that, and it would keep them from losing their calm when there's a lot of noise in a game. So preparing for high pressure situations, with baseball, bases loaded jams, with a batter up for a pitcher is a high pressure situation. So you have to think about what you would do in that situation and prepare yourself for it. If you don't prepare yourself for it, then when it comes time for that, you're not going to be composed and you're going to hit that red light. So it's important to make sure that you have prepared yourself for that. Make everyone work on the exercises before leaving that day. Don't just let them say, oh, okay, well, that's something I'll work on. Do a couple of breathing exercises with everyone in the locker room before they leave, things like that. And that is a good way to start, because once they actually do it, maybe they'll be like, okay, I feel better, with the breathing. That made me feel more composed just in general already. So, and then over here you have confidence and composure is developed through progression from doable, familiar activities to more complex tasks. So for the mental toughness program, this is the heart of the program. This is a 2-week deal. It's meant to make players more mentally prepared for the regular season. You have a mix of on-field activities and locker room discussions, and the goal here is obviously to build better mental toughness to lead to a stronger mental team and also a more close team. You want to have good team chemistry. Otherwise, your season's not going to go too well. You can't have outcasts and standoffs on a team to work well. So you're going to benefit from doing these activities with all of them together. Week 1 is going to be a focus more on the background of the program and what the meaning of the terms actually are. You want to give people a good understanding of what it means to be mentally tough, and you don't want to give them a base where they are like they don't understand the difference between that and being cocky and overconfident. You don't want players that walk around like they're the best thing that's ever lived on the planet. So there's a difference, and you have to establish that difference in order to progress. So the first step is making sure they understand. Are they mentally tough, or are they being cocky on the field? As for week 2, that's the hands-on part. This part is going to be where players are going to get the most out of. The first thing to work on in the week would be an awareness. You want to talk to players about the difference between being somewhere and being and doing things and just kind of going with it, and being aware of what they're doing and being alert and responsive. There's a big difference between going out there and doing everything at practice and going through the motions, and going out there and putting an effort into it and actually working to improve to get somewhere. A lot of players don't understand that difference, and they think practice is just something where you go out and it's just a title of practice, and if it's something they're not interested in, then they're not going to work at it. So players need to understand that in order to develop their awareness, they have to be aware in practice. It's just like you practice like you play. So you have to be aware at all times. And from that, you work on being in the zone. Now, once players can develop a sense of awareness on the field, they'll be able to understand how to get in the zone. Tapping into an inner focus when you're in a game is a big deal. You'll see players, the elite players in baseball, basketball, football, any sport, they'll get in a zone, and you can see it in their eyes when you're watching it on TV, for example. And that's usually when they're at their peak performance within a game. So you see somebody like LeBron James, and he's made 2 or 3 shots in a row. You see that look in his eyes, and that's where he gets that inner focus. Now, for a pitcher, for example, when you strike out a batter, you start feeling it a little more, and then you strike out the next batter, and then that's when you're going to start getting into your zone. Now, players who aren't alert and aware of the situation, that's when 2-out walks can happen because they don't get into that zone and they don't build off of it. They just kind of go with it because they haven't worked on it. So being in the zone is a big deal, and you have to work with them on that. Otherwise, you're just going to have people that go through the motions at all times, and that's, even with good skills, that's developing an average team. So the last thing you want to work on in that week program is intensity versus being tense. And this can be a make or break situation. Players who play uptight, those are the ones that you see try to do too much. And it's like from the PowerPoints that we did, you can't be too tense because you obviously have the ability, especially at a college level. So why to try to do too much? You're there for a reason. And it's like when they said the concept of choking, players who think in their head that they're more of a novice when they're rather actually very good, that's when they start to do too much, and that's when they can't perform at their best because they're thinking about every little thing, and it ruins their ability to perform. The most important part of this entire thing, in my personal opinion, is goal setting. Players will create goals for themselves based on what they are going to do in the regular season. So, for example, if somebody wants to bat 300, then they're going to write down, I want to bat 300 this year. And that gives them something to work for. Players are also encouraged to create goals for things outside of baseball. So, just everyday life, I want to gain 15 pounds before the first game. That's a great thing to do. So, it gives them a good reason to work hard, and it also builds onto that mental toughness because they're saying, if they do end up reaching those goals, then it says, hey, I can do that, so why can't I do this, And I think that's a big part of developing toughness is setting goals, because it gives you something to actually work for personally, and once you actually achieve that goal, you feel very accomplished. So, in conclusion, a program like this is set up to improve the overall mentality and togetherness of an entire team. And by improving one person's mentality in a team sport, you don't have any progress made. Maybe in basketball, one good player can carry a team, but in most team sports, that's not going to happen. So you have to work together with this whole thing, and activities done as an entire unit is going to develop everybody's mental toughness. That is all. Thank you.